Hank Barrett stood frozen as a sleek black sedan rolled to a stop in front of the rickety wooden house at the end of Red Pine Valley. 30 years ago, he had been the vice leader of the Hollow Riders, a motorcycle group known for escorting a bullied poor kid simply because the boy lived in a trailer park. Now, at 72, he was just an old man, alone, facing eviction from what was once his last refuge. As a young doctor and a woman in a tailored suit stepped out of the car, Hank braced himself for more bad news. What he didn't know was that the man approaching was the boy he once protected, and this time he was back, to return the favor in a way no one could have imagined. Welcome to Social Justice. Let's begin the story. In a place where pine trees grew so thick that sunlight struggled to break through, there was a small mountain town called Ash Valley, where every step crunched beneath fallen needles and silence came easy. A town where everyone knew everyone, and if you lived there long enough, you'd learn that the past never truly rests. The last house on Red Pine Trail, back pressed against the forest, front facing the valley, belonged to Hank Barrett, 72 years old. The tin roof was rusted, the wooden steps sagging, and a crooked "For Sale, Urgent" sign leaned tiredly on the sunburnt grass. Winter was coming, and for Hank, it wasn't just a season of snow. It was a season of farewells. He used to be someone, vice president of the Hollow Riders, a biker club once feared across 3 neighboring towns. But those days were long gone. The club had dissolved, friends had died or drifted away. All that remained was Hank, a creaky old man with an arthritic hip, a nearly empty bottle of joint meds, and a cat named Whiskey. That morning, Hank was sitting on a fold-out chair on his porch, sipping watery coffee from a chipped ceramic mug, when a shiny black car crawled up the gravel driveway. No local plates. Tires looked new, and its spotless windshield stood out like ink on aged paper in this dusty valley. Hank squinted. He knew the feeling. It was always the same. Someone dressed too nice, driving too clean, knocking on his door, never brought good news. The car door opened. A woman stepped out, early 40s, dark brown hair tied neatly, wearing a charcoal gray suit and holding a leather briefcase. Behind her stood a tall black man, sturdy posture, but something unreadable behind his steady eyes. Hank stood up, straightening his back like a soldier recalling muscle memory, and before they could ring the bell, he swung the door open. "Say what you came to say," he barked. "I'm not buying anything, and I sure as hell don't have money to pay." The woman gave a soft smile, not mocking, not overly polite, just as if she had expected that exact line. "Mr. Barrett," she said, her voice crisp but calm, "I'm attorney Layla Morgan. This is Dr. Noah Daniels. We just need a few minutes. It's personal." Hank blinked. Personal. That word made him uneasy. Not the county, not the court, not the bank, but it didn't make him feel better either. He glanced at the black man standing beside her, tall, about 40, eyes sharp but silent. "I ain't got coffee to offer," Hank grumbled, stepping aside. "Come in, but keep it short." The living room was cramped, with the scent of old wood, stale cigarette smoke, and a trace of cat food lingering in the air. The sofa was threadbare, the black and white photos on the walls had faded, but the sunlight streaming through the curtains gave the room a strange warmth, as if it still remembered laughter. Whiskey, the striped gray cat, eyed the guests suspiciously before leaping onto Hank's lap and curling up tight. "Well, say it," Hank muttered, stroking the cat's back, eyes narrow with the look of a man who had nothing left to lose. And that's when the doctor spoke, for the first time since stepping through the door. "Mr. Barrett," he said slowly, choosing every word, "do you remember a boy named Noah Daniels?" Hank froze. That name, Noah Daniels, echoed through his mind like a pebble dropped into the bottom of a dry well. Not exactly unfamiliar, but blurry. He stared directly at the man in front of him. Brown skin, sturdy frame, eyes deep and holding something unspoken. "Noah Daniels, huh?" he repeated, voice dropping lower. one hand absent-mindedly stroking the fur on the cat in his lap, buying time for his memory to catch up. Skinny kid, thick glasses, mom worked 2 shifts, lived down on Red Pine Row. He spoke slowly as fragments of the past began rising like mist from a forgotten lake. Got bullied by those rich Green Hill kids, didn't he? Dr. Daniels nodded. His face was composed, but his lips pressed together tight, as if holding back something heavier than words. That boy was me, he said. The room fell still, like even the air stopped moving. Hank leaned back into his chair, one hand dropping to his side, eyes staring off like they'd just been pulled 30 years into the past. Back then, his crew, the Hollow Riders, were something between outlaws and guardians, not heroes, definitely not saints. But when someone in the Red Pine trailer park cried for help, they showed up. An old neighbor, Miss Eula May, had told him about little Noah, how the neighborhood boys dunked him in creek water, hid his shoes, spat in his backpack, just because he lived in a trailer. His mom, Marlene, had called the cops more than once, but Sheriff Whitman just kept saying, "No evidence, no case." Hank didn't need evidence. "God," he whispered. "I remember." Layla, the lawyer, who had remained silent until now, reached into her briefcase and pulled out a faded photograph. "I think you should hold on to this," she said softly. The photo was yellowed, its corners curled, but the image remained sharp. A line of leather-jacketed bikers, standing shoulder to shoulder, eyes like steel. In the middle, a scrawny black boy, bottle-thick glasses, a coat too big for him, one biker, hand resting gently on the boy's shoulder, unmistakably a younger Hank, thick beard, fiery eyes. Hank stared at the photo, his hand trembling. A long silence hung over the room, broken only by the cat purring against his chest. "I kept that picture for 30 years, Noah said, his voice low. "It reminded me not everyone in Red Pine was invisible." Hank exhaled, a breath that sounded like it came from deep beneath his ribs. Then he gave a dry chuckle, though his eyes had gone glassy. "We just thought we were doing the right thing," he said. "Giving those punks a scare, teaching them to show some damn respect. Never thought it'd change someone's life." Noah finished, not smiling, but his voice warm, like firelight on a snowy night. Hank didn't speak. The room shrank around them, as if drawing 3 people and a cat into a space where unspoken truths finally had room to breathe. "I never forgot," Noah said quietly, "even if the world did. And I came back to say thank you." In Ash Valley, even in summer, the mornings came with fog. Wisps of mist slithered across the ground, wrapping around the row of trailer homes in Red Pine, like a worn-out blanket someone had washed in cold water. At trailer number 12, the smallest one, its silver paint faded and leaning slightly to one side, Noah Daniels, 12 years old, had already learned how to wake up before the landlord's knock, and how to stay quiet about everything else. That morning, he didn't bother slinging his backpack over his shoulder like usual. Instead, he sat hunched on the front steps, chin on knees, fingers gripping the straps of his ruined shoes. His left sole was split open, and his socks were still damp from the night before. When the Hawk boys had shoved him into the drainage ditch behind the mini-mart, his mother, Marlene Daniels, had just come off the night shift at the roadside gas station. She still wore her uniform, reeking of gasoline and cold coffee, as she leaned against the doorframe watching her son. Her eyes were sunken, her hair tied back hastily, but she managed a small, tired smile. "You're saying you fell again?" she asked, voice barely louder than a breath. Noah didn't reply. He just pushed his thick glasses up the bridge of his nose, hiding the shadows under his eyes. "What did they call you this time?" she asked again, not stepping forward, as if afraid getting too close would cause her son to crack. "Trailer trash, dirty kid," Noah whispered, sighed. "Fatherless." This time, Marlene moved closer. She sat beside him, exhaling. No ranting, no crying, just exhaustion, the kind that sinks in when you realize being strong isn't always enough to protect what matters most. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I've called the school 3 times. They said they'd look into it. I even called the sheriff. But Whitman said, no proof, no action." "Well, yeah," Noah muttered. "Who'd believe a kid living in a tin can on wheels?" Silence. Then, from a distance, the sound of brakes squealing, metal shifting. Marlene stood up, squinting down the dirt path that led into Red Pine. A motorcycle rolled in, then another and another. 3 men, dressed in worn leather jackets, helmets slung over one shoulder, pulled up in front of old Miss Eula May's cabin next door. They didn't speak, just dismounted, carrying bags of nails, planks of wood, and a big water jug. Marlene watched them, wary, and then something she never expected happened. Eula May, now 83, shuffled out of her front door, arms wide, embracing the biggest biker, a silver-haired man with eyes that burned bright. Her face lit up, like a mother seeing her son for the first time in years. "My boys," she called out to Marlene. "These are the kids I used to give candy to. They came back to take care of me." Marlene stepped closer, cautiously. The silver-haired man, later she'd learn his name was Hank Barrett, gave her a polite nod. "You're Noah's mom, right? Eula told us everything." "And you are?" Marlene asked, half suspicious, half stunned. "I'm Hank. The tall one there is Moose, and the lanky one's Diesel. We grew up here, same trailers, same names they call your boy now." Marlene clenched her hands. For a second it wasn't clear whether from fear or emotion, but Hank's eyes held no pity, only understanding. "Can I ask you something?" he said slowly. "If we wanted to teach those kids a little lesson about how to treat others right, would you be okay with us protecting your son in a way that's a bit unconventional?" The next morning, the Red Pine Mobile Park didn't wake up to the usual sounds. No trash truck horns, no landlords banging on doors for rent. Instead, it woke to the roar of engines, a sound rarely heard in a place where folks were more used to rattling air conditioners and washing machines on their last legs. 17 motorcycles, mismatched models, chipped paint, cracked leather seats, but polished clean, rode in, one after another, forming a line on the gravel road that led through the trailer park. Each one rolled with rhythm like a slow-moving ceremony. Leading the pack was Hank Barrett. Behind him came Moose, built like a grizzly bear riding thunder, and Diesel, all long limbs and dramatic hand gestures like he was conducting an orchestra of steel. Noah Daniels, 12, stood frozen at the doorstep. His jacket was old, but freshly ironed by his mother. His backpack still bore the dirt stains from when it was stomped into the ground 3 days before. He looked like a fawn thrown into the spotlight, the sun his only stage light, the curtains drawn back by the curious eyes peeking from every trailer window. "Mom," he whispered, glancing back at Marlene, who had just tied his shoelaces. Who are they?" Marlene smiled, a tired, soft smile, the kind only a mother gives when she's just realized something important, and it didn't come from the school board or the police department. "You call them friends," she said. "They're here to take you to school." Noah turned. Hank was getting off his bike. He walked over and held out a small helmet, clearly modified to fit a child's head. Not to ride, but to stand among them, without feeling small. "Ready, kid?" Hank asked, voice low and warm. "Today you're going to school with a whole army behind you." And that's exactly how it happened. The sight of a skinny black kid stepping out into the middle of 17 motorcycles silenced the whole neighborhood. Some folks snapped pictures, others just stared from behind curtains. But when Hank placed his hand on Noah's shoulder, and the engines all started at once, even the bullies who once tormented him didn't say a word. In Ash Valley, The middle school sat right in the heart out of town, 4 miles of winding mountain road from Red Pine. That morning, nobody, not the principal, not the sheriff, was prepared for the most unexpected student escort in town history. 17 roaring bikes rolling past the gas station, the grocery store, the bakery, before parking at the school's front gate. Noah stepped off, flanked by 2 giants in leather, Hank on the left, Moose on the right. Principal Whitman was already outside, red-faced as if sunburned, gripping a clipboard, stammering, "You can't, this is school property, we don't allow—" "We're officially listed as Noah's legal pickup and drop-off," Hank interrupted, tone casual, like he was commenting on the weather. "His mom signed last night. You need to check? Be our guest." Whitman swallowed hard. Down the hallways, students had started to gather, curious, stunned, maybe a little excited. Phones came out. The Hawk boys stiffened near the lockers. One of them stepped back, hugging the wall. Moose took 1 step forward. His voice, deep as thunder but never raised, rolled out. "What's unusual isn't us standing here. What's unusual is a kid getting punched in the face 3 times in a week, and no one doing a damn thing." The silence was deafening. Then Hank knelt, bringing himself to Noah's eye level. He didn't look at him like a grown-up looks at a child, but like a brother looks at a new member of the crew. "We'll be back at 3 p.m. sharp," he said. "If anyone lays a hand on you, you just tell us. That's all. We'll take care of the rest." Noah nodded. His throat felt tight. A strange warmth filled his chest. Something he hadn't felt in 12 years of shrinking himself down to fit the corners of his life. Safety. As he walked into school, the hall cleared for him. No one laughed, no one pointed, no one called him trash. And that afternoon, at exactly 3 p.m., the engines returned, rumbling through Ash Valley, like a reminder that wherever injustice tries to hide, someone will always be willing to ride in and stand for what's right. After that morning, Ash Valley was never quite the same. Every day at exactly 7:15 a.m., the motorcycles appeared at the gate of Red Pine. No noise, no showboating, just presence. They came to escort Noah Daniels to school, like a silent ritual, as if the whole town needed to be reminded that even a poor boy deserved to be seen and respected. At first, Noah felt like he was standing at the center of a fireworks show. Everyone stared, everyone whispered. Some old classmates avoided his gaze, others forced an awkward smile. But slowly, things began to shift. Not with loud declarations, but in the smallest of ways. On Tuesday morning, a brown-haired girl, Emily from math class, walked over to Noah's lunch table. She didn't say much, just set down her tray and sat beside him. "I like your sketchbook," she said. "You draw really well." On Wednesday, as Noah was putting books into his locker, Jason Mercer, the leader of the Hawk Boys, appeared at the end of the hall. But instead of heading toward him, he changed direction and quietly walked the long way around. By Friday, the most surprising thing happened. The entire Hollow Riders Motorcycle Club, nearly 50 members, gathered outside the school at dismissal, bikes lined up neatly, helmets shining under the soft afternoon light, leather jackets embroidered with the iconic lightning tiger patch. Noah stepped outside. He didn't smile, didn't speak. Then Hank approached, holding a small leather jacket tailored with the exact same patch, perfectly sized for a boy. "Honorary member," he said, "like the way someone once brought us in. Not because you're weak," he added, "but because you're braver than you know." Noah took the jacket. He said nothing, but clutched it tightly with both hands, as if afraid someone might take it away. The photo taken that day, a skinny black boy in a slightly oversized leather jacket, standing in a circle of proud, rough-looking bikers, began circulating around Ash Valley, and from that moment on, no one in town dared refer to the trailer park with a sneer again. 3 weeks later, the daily biker escort began to taper off. Not because they forgot, but because they knew their part was done. Now Noah walked to school alone, but he no longer lowered his head, no longer avoided eye contact. He walked straight, shoulders back, eyes calm, and strangely, that calmness unsettled the very people who once ignored him. Some started nodding hello, others shifted seats to make room at their lunch table. A few teachers, under the excuse of asking about homework, found themselves talking with him longer than usual. Then one day Marlene asked, "Do you still want that disposable camera I saved for your birthday last year?" Noah nodded. He smiled. For the first time in what felt like forever. "I want to take pictures," he said, "of people, the ones who stood beside me when no one else would." The little house at the end of Red Pine still looked the same. Rusted tin roof, sagging wooden steps, a crooked window that leaned to one side. But when Hank Barrett opened the door to his two visitors that morning, his eyes no longer held suspicion, only silence. In his hands was the photo Noah had given him earlier, faded and blurry to most, but crystal clear to Hank, a 12-year-old boy, swallowed in a leather jacket, standing in the middle of a group of towering bikers, and Hank, one hand resting on the boy's shoulder like a silent promise, "I'm here, no one's going to touch you now." "You're really a doctor?" Hank finally said, voice hoarse. "You save people now?" Noah nodded. No pride, no fanfare, just truth. "Pediatric trauma surgeon, Memorial Hospital. I know what it feels like to be the kid everyone leaves behind." Hank gripped the photo tighter. He looked down, then back at Noah, as if trying to match the boy from the memory with the man standing before him. Then he sighed. "We just thought we were doing what needed to be done. A kid was getting hurt, and we could stop it. And that," Noah said softly, "is why you saved me." After a long pause, Layla Morgan, the lawyer, opened her case and placed a thick folder on the worn wooden table. "We didn't just come here to revisit the past, Mr. Barrett," she said gently. "We're here to change something important in the present." Hank narrowed his eyes. He was used to paperwork meaning trouble, but this time it was a property deed. Recipient, Hank Barrett. "I bought the land back from the owner," Noah explained, "and I registered the title under your name. No more rent, no more eviction, no more fear." Hank gripped the arm of his chair. His knuckles whitened, his face turned red, not from anger but from the strange feeling of being small. In his life he'd done a lot of things, but he'd never received a gift so big it left him speechless. "I don't need charity," Hank mumbled. "I'm fine." Noah just smiled, gently, like a memory. "You once told me, friends look out for each other. Now it's my turn to do that. This isn't charity, it's gratitude." Hank was quiet for a long time. Finally he lowered his head, cupping the old photo with both hands. "Your mother, Marlene, is she doing okay?" "She's good," Noah replied. "She lives with us now, still talks about you, calls you that grumpy but kind biker guy." Hank chuckled, a short, cracked sound, like the last stone finally falling from his chest. "What about Moose, Diesel?" Noah looked down. "Moose passed away 5 years ago. Heart failure. Diesel moved to Arizona. We lost touch." The room sank a little. Hank nodded slowly. No words were needed. Some griefs don't need to be spoken, only shared. "So I'm the one who stayed behind," he murmured. Noah pulled a framed photo from his coat, an enlarged version of the old image, now restored with clarity and care. Young Noah, lost in that oversized leather jacket, surrounded by men who weren't perfect, but that day had been exactly right. "I want this to hang on your wall," Noah said, "not to remember the past, but to remind you, sometimes one right act can change an entire life." Hank took the frame, and for the first time in nearly a decade of living alone, his house felt like it meant something again. That day, the sky above Ash Valley was unusually clear. No clouds, no wind, only the stillness of the forest at dusk, when every sound seems to quiet itself, as if making space for something more important to unfold. Hank Barrett walked slowly toward the old wooden cabinet, the one he once tried to sell a few years back, but no one wanted it because the left door always jammed. He tugged open the bottom drawer, stiff, but he still remembered just where to press, and pulled out an old, cracked leather album. The Hollow Rider's emblem had faded over time, but when Hank flipped to the first page, his eyes lit up, like someone had flicked on a light in a dark corner of memory. "This one," he said, pointing to a slightly blurred photo, "was from the day we held the Justice BBQ. After escorting you, the cops thought we were threatening the school, ended up eating 3 sausages each before they left." Noah laughed, warm and easy. Layla Morgan, the lawyer, remained seated quietly, her hands folded, watching the two men like someone witnessing 2 pieces of time finally finding their way back to each other. The next photo showed the whole crew in front of their old clubhouse, long since torn down to make way for a gas station. Then came a photo of Moose lifting a kid's broken bike frame, Diesel polishing a side mirror for an elderly woman in town. "I remember, after your case, we started visiting the orphanage at the end of each month," Hank said. "No one told us to. It just felt better than tearing up the highway." Noah nodded. "And it didn't stop with me, you know," he said softly. "That day you put your hand on my shoulder, it started a ripple, one you'll never fully see." Hank sat still for a moment. Then he let out a breath, not heavy, but just enough to lift something that had weighed down his chest for too long. "I've got a spare bedroom," he mumbled. "Don't go in there much. Mostly just boxes and a busted fan. But if you ever want to bring your family up for a weekend, I figure I ought to clean it out." Noah looked at him, quiet, then nodded, slow, steady, needing no words. That afternoon, as Noah and Layla drove away, Hank stood on the porch, holding the carefully framed photo in his hand. Behind him was still an old house, but now it was his house, a place that held laughter from the past, the warmth of shared honor, and the grateful eyes of a boy who'd grown up to save the lives of other children. As the car disappeared down the road out of Red Pine, Hank turned and walked back inside. He chose a spot on the wooden wall where the old broken clock used to hang and drove in a nail. The photo went up, no flowers, no ceremony, just reverence. And as if sealing the moment, he turned toward the window, looking out at the last light before sunset. "Yeah, if my back doesn't act up tomorrow, I'll start clearing that room." Then he went to the table, pulled out a sheet of blank paper, and scribbled in his rough but firm handwriting, "Some debts can't be repaid with money, only by living in a way that honors the ones who once reached out for you." And for the first time in many, many years, Hank Barrett no longer felt the emptiness, only wholeness, not because he had everything, but because someone had remembered him with a lifetime's worth of meaning. Did you love this story? Give it a like to help kindness travel further. Subscribe so you won't miss the next tale that just might move your heart. And don't forget, the video playing right now, trust me, you won't want to miss it.